Hey, welcome to the Homemade Family. I'm Nathaniel White, and this is not Amy White. This is my daughter, Adoniah. She is jumping in for her mama today, and I am very excited to have her here. So before we jump into our topic of conversation for today, I'll just remind you that you can find any of our past podcasts on any podcast service, iTunes or Spotify or whatever you like to listen to. You just got to search for the Homemade Family and you'll find us there. You can also find us on YouTube at the Homemade Family. I think you might need to search for Nathaniel and Amy White as well. But I think that's all Amy usually says. She's usually the one to handle those details. But I'm super excited to have Adoniah here today. She joined me along with Amy and your brother for an episode probably almost a year ago, and we talked about dating and relationships, and that was a really awesome topic and conversation that I highly recommend that you go and find that one. But today we're talking about discipline again. Amy and I talked about discipline last week, and we thought that it would be great for this week to have one of our kids on and get the kids' perspective on discipline. And I'm putting air quotes on that one, on the kids' perspective of discipline, because if you've been following us, you know that our kids, we call them adults at the age of 13, and we treat them like they're adults from that moment on. We invite them to have that kind of seat at the table where their voice matters and it carries weight and all of those kinds of things. And so Adoniah joining me today actually is an outflow of that, of her carrying the weight of an adult level voice in this conversation. But it's still helpful. She's the one still under mom and dad's authority in the home and has been raised under the way that we have disciplined. And so just think that it will be helpful and insightful and interesting to get her thoughts. So that's a lot of me talking and not her talking, just to introduce this. So welcome. Thanks for joining me, Adoniah.
Yep.
A little bit about Adoniah, just some fun things. She had her first day at her first official job yesterday, which is a really big day for us as a family and for her as well. She's done lots of babysitting. She took the babysitting class as young as she possibly could take that, and then as soon as she turned 14, she's like, "People will hire me now. Let's get me a job." And so yesterday was her first day of orientation. You finished that up today, and then it's good real world stuff. All right, so talking about discipline, Adoniah, I want to just start off, just kind of getting the ball rolling. What are some of your general impressions or thoughts about the role of discipline in your life?
It's definitely helped me. I don't know, the way you guys did discipline, and I think how discipline should be done. I always knew the why of discipline. Whenever we were younger and we were getting spanked, why did mommy and daddy do this? Because they love us. And we always answered the question, so we always had the why, and that really helped me, especially being a really stubborn child. If I had a reason for doing something, then it helped me be less stubborn and adamant about not doing it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely helped me and shaped me. And
right. So we literally, some mentors of ours in especially early stage parenting, early childhood development parenting, they gave us a card that was like, here's your scripted card of how to discipline your kids. And it was literally laminated, had magnets on it. We put it on our fridge, and that thing was absolutely a game changer for us. Where literally, we had, these are your three, the way that we did it, and this isn't the only way to do it, but this is how we did it, is we had each child had 3 no-nos. And there were other things that we would correct them on, but only 3 that resulted in really actual discipline. And that way they knew these are the clear boundaries. They know when they're crossing them. They do it intentionally, and they are looking to see, is this boundary really in effect? Is there really structure? Is this reliable? Is it trustworthy? And maybe they don't realize they're doing that, but you can see by the fruit in their life that's what they're doing. So they cross a boundary, and then you sit them down and you say, hey, what did you do? And they have to confess, I hit my brother, whatever it was. I threw a temper tantrum. That's right, you threw a temper tantrum. And what does daddy have to do when you throw a temper tantrum? And this is literally how the conversation would go. Sometimes it would be a little bit more frustrated, but we would make sure we never did it angry. And so it was just a compassionate conversation. Hey, I'm so sorry that you made this decision, but now there's consequences because choices have consequences. And so what did you do? This is what I did. What does daddy have to do? Daddy has to spank. And why does daddy have to spank you? Because daddy loves me. And it'd be like one little spank and that's it. And as long as that one little bit of discipline, it almost always, it led to repentance. It led to genuine, tearful, I'm sorry for what I did. There's immediate hugging and holding them and restoring them. And so in a lot of ways, this was actually a really, really merciful way to do discipline, because it starts with love, it ends with love. And the pain of it is like maybe 30 seconds long, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's like maybe.
And it works way better than attempting to like do it differently.
Bargain with your 2-year-old who has no reasoning skills.
No, but I mean like timeouts or different things like that. Like we very rarely did those, or like when I was older. And with the stubborn child, that just doesn't work. I'd like brood in my room about how many ways I was right and they were wrong. And like, unless we had that immediate conversation and quick,
right, and like, quick confrontation of your will.
Confrontation, yeah.
Yeah. So for you, it was good to have, first of all, the confrontation, like a direct,
yes,
physical, like actual. Here's a real boundary.
Yes.
So a real legitimate boundary. That was one of the things that was helpful for you. Also, having an explanation of this is why we're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And you were telling me last night that even when you're young, it was good enough for that explanation to be because mom and dad love you.
Yeah, even if I don't understand the chains of like geometry currently, I'm like the chains of logic and the different sequences of like, here's what we're trying to prove and here's the different things. Like, here's why, like, I know the end reason and I didn't need to understand all of the steps of reason within that. Like, as long as I knew this was the reason, then like as I got older, the reasons could be more complicated and things like that. But
right.
Just the simple,
yeah,
because they love me, was good enough when I was younger. And then
as you grew older, we were able to give you more complicated understanding that grew along with your ability to comprehend it.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. So that's kind of like what was helpful for you. Generally, what would you say, like, how has discipline benefited you, or has it benefited you?
Yes, it's definitely benefited me. It stopped me from being a stubborn, rebellious, idiotic person.
Elaborate on that, because I mean, like, anybody who knows you now doesn't know. Yeah. So that just might sound like, oh yeah, but well, my parents told me that. Yeah. You know, whatever. It might sound like brainwashing. So help people understand what you mean by that.
If I don't know, if I didn't have discipline, I would have always thought I was right and like stubbornly stayed in I'm right. Like, I don't know. Like, I would always just do my own thing, and I wouldn't have any respect for authority or understanding of consequences. And no matter how much things hurt, I would stay in it. Like, honestly, like, things could be so painful, but I would stubbornly stick to my reasoning. And if truth was slapping me in the face, I would turn the other way. And I did that a number of times when I was younger, but it was with smaller things. Like, I don't know. But as you get older,
Do you remember any specific examples? Just to make smaller things more practical of an example.
I don't know. I think there was
Okay.
one time when I was like cleaning my room, and I'm like, I don't want to clean my room. Like, I am going to stand here and not do what my parents want me to do just because I don't want to do it. And I don't care how many times I get corrected or how much it hurts, I will not clean my room because I don't want to, and I'm stubborn, and I'm just going to stay in it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
But if I did that now, it would be with much, much, much bigger things, with much, much, much bigger consequences. And because I was disciplined when I was younger, and then the consequences saved me from having bigger hurt.
Right. So contrast that. Like, okay, you got a spanking and it hurt for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Versus now you sass off to
yeah.
a teacher. If
Oh,
you were
yeah.
in public school or you were in whatever kind of school and you're sassing off to a teacher, or even in homeschool, you just get stubborn and stiff-necked against somebody trying to teach you something, and you're like, no, I know better and I don't care what you say, and I'm going to ignore you just because you are trying to tell me I'm wrong. Like, even though I know I'm wrong, I don't care that I'm wrong. Because I care more about winning than about truth.
Then I would throw my life away, like ruin my life. Much bigger consequences at this age.
Right. Now there would be much, much bigger consequences. And the older you get, the bigger those consequences are. Now you have a job, you're 14, you are building your own reputation and a name for yourself. And part of that means listening to your boss and learning from your boss and following the procedures at work. And do you agree with all the procedures you currently have at work?
No.
And it's like day one, and there's already things you don't agree with or wouldn't be your preference or whatever else. And so learning those things when you're little means now you get the blessing of income. Right? Yeah.
And mental health.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, I don't know. Life is hard when you're the only authority.
Ooh, that's good. What do you mean by that?
Like, I don't know. I always like to ask questions and ask why and dig deeper into things. But if you're the one dictating the truth in your world, then that's a very unstable foundation. And then that can lead into depression or overpressure or feeling inadequate or feeling arrogant and then giant mood swings, and I don't know.
Right. There's a lot of pressure on you. If you are the source of truth and authority in your own life, then that's a lot of weight resting on you.
Even if it's subconscious.
And so what I hear you saying is it actually relieves stress. It relieves anxiety to know I can let somebody else be in charge. I can manage
clear boundaries.
I can manage what's mine to manage, but I don't need to control everything. Right.
And that's coming from someone who does like to control everything.
Right. Yeah. So a little background, if you get Adoniah in a group of peers, and especially if it's slightly younger peers, instantly Adoniah will be the one organizing the activity, coming up with the idea, this is what we're going to do, that we'll do it this way, and we'll take turns. And and it'll be a good idea and it'll be fair for everybody else. And she makes room, she facilitates life. She's grown in her leadership skills to do those kinds of things, and not everybody appreciates it anyway because they want to be in charge too. So whatever, but for the most part, it becomes a thing that transforms a group of kids from sitting around like, oh, what should we do? I'm really bored, to, oh, now they're actually connecting and thriving and having fun, all because of some creativity and leadership from Adoniah. She likes to be in charge and give directions. But you hear how the benefit of discipline gives her the ability to be the person in charge and have confidence in that role, but also lay that aside and be the person who learns and serves and follows, understanding that that's also important at certain times in certain places, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, to what differences have you seen? Like, I think you've kind of touched on this a little bit, but like when you look at kids who, or whether that's friends or just kids you've been around, or examples you see in, shows that we watch or movies or whatever, like media examples, but just wherever it is, what difference do you see between your experience and where other kids are at? Especially if like they weren't disciplined.
Yeah, there are a couple of families with kids my age that I know weren't disciplined, and generally were happier, have more life.
Saying you are.
Yes, we are. We definitely have more life and more confidence and relationship, and there are other variables affecting this as well, but definitely more confidence and more favor in different things. The more honor you have for someone, the more you can receive from them. And being disciplined, you learn to have honor for those in charge of you, and you learn to discern who is a good leader and who's a bad leader, and honoring just the same. But the more honor you have, the more you can receive from a person, and the more life you can get from receiving them, from them.
Wow. So go ahead.
So yeah, just okay. Generally we have.
So that actually, what you actually just kind of introduced another benefit of being disciplined, in that it teaches you to honor, and honor leads to getting more benefit in your life. And so this actually, it isn't just that it saves you from negative things, but it actually opens you up to positive things in a way that it actually snowballs the good things that it brings into your life. Mm-hmm. Because it taught you honor, now you can access the good things that person wants to impart to you, and that person wants to teach you, and that person wants to lead you in, and because you're able to follow and you're able to honor authority and respect authority, then now you can, literally so many more doors are open to you to learn, to grow, to mature, to it just become
have more life,
right. Whereas a lack of discipline, from your perspective, would have left you isolated, hyper independent, because you weren't taught to honor these connections. But in that hyper independence, it's an unhealthy level of independence that leads to isolation and a lot of these other things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the independence, but when you are a part of a group and when you follow instructions and when you have good leadership, you get a sense of community and identity and belonging, which also build life and are very good things.
Yeah, that's really, really good. I'm going to write down a couple more questions that I'm thinking of with this, but really big picture, while I'm writing this down, would you tell us, how might our nation's culture be different if parents used healthy discipline?
Well, I feel like a majority of the psychological disorders that are extremely common and prevalent right now, like depression, anxiety, different things like that, would be mostly gone if parents parented. Um, there would be like healthier workplaces, and you wouldn't constantly have to be worrying about offending everybody, because and like life would just be so much better because those who are correctable can grow and learn, and who have been corrected and take the correction and use it to go forward, and can even take unhealthy correction and like judge between different things. Like if they learned that from a young age, then people would work harder and have healthier mindsets, and would generally make like workplaces and families especially, like it would just perpetuate itself on and become a lot better.
Yeah. So you're talking about like mental health.
Mental health, yeah.
And anxiety, stress, super high levels of depression, suicidal tendencies, all those kinds of things. And you believe that discipline would actually help with all of those.
Yes.
So what is it about discipline that would help with those, do you think?
Because discipline is really like teaching and instilling like core values into people, and teaching them either what to think or how to think, or both. And so when you have the foundation of the values, discipline is really just backing up those values. And so if you have those values, then you can base everything else off of that. And depression and anxiety typically come from like the unknown, or instability, or a feeling of worthlessness. And like I said earlier, like following others and being a part of a group and a sense of community like can definitely bring up your self-worth, or like perception of self-worth, whatever. And so once you have the foundation of truth that you build on, then all of the mental whatever.
Yeah. I think you're right in some of those things. Especially, I loved what you said about like anxiety and depression and that sort of thing. A lot of times that's coming from a feeling of internal instability, and I don't know who I am, and I don't know how this is going to turn out. And that's kind of the thing of like, okay, discipline actually teaches you don't need to control everything. And there are some things that are outside of your control, and that's okay. And it teaches you to manage what's yours, and to let go of the things that you're not. And a lot of that managing is your internal world. And hey, just because you're feeling this thing doesn't mean you get to explode that emotion all over everybody and make a massive mess of things. You know, you're actually okay. You're gonna be all right. We can walk through this together, but let's walk through it with character. It's okay. We acknowledge the emotion. Yes, we've taught this before, but it's good to repeat it. But we acknowledge the emotion. Hey, I'm so sorry that you're sad. Hey, I'm sorry that you're afraid. I'm sorry that you're feeling anxious or stressed about this. I want to help you with that, you know. And what truths can we come back to? Like you said, the core values that we live from. What truths do we come back to that help guide us through these difficult emotions? Or what hope can we fix our hearts on that keeps us able to move forward and gives us a strength in the middle of that? And a lot of that can be, you know, God is with us and he's always more than enough. And I'm a loved son or daughter of God. Or, you know, how many times were you having issues at nighttime? And I'm like straighten your crown, princess, because you are a daughter of God, and those fears don't get to tell you what to do, and those are disciplined kinds of conversations, right? And in part, you were able to hear me in those conversations that were hard because you're in a moment of fear. And I'm not exactly coming in as a knight on shining armor. I'm trying to give you your own shining armor, like give you your own strong identity, because you're called to be an overcomer, not just have me overcome for you, right? But you were able to hear me and honor my words in that conversation and receive the benefit from it because of those moments of discipline earlier in your life.
And discipline also helps you handle the hard things and humble yourself when you're wrong and when you need to hear from somebody else, because honestly, sometimes you don't know yourself as well as some other people, and sometimes you need other people to come be like,
yeah,
hey, this isn't you, like, come on,
snap out of it.
Yeah. And when you've heard correction and like you have people that you trust more than yourself and you're willing to humble yourself, and it teaches you those things as well.
That's so good. So we're down to our last 3 minutes or so here. The last two questions, same question, but what would you want to tell your peers about discipline?
That discipline is good, and that honoring those who are disciplining you is also good and necessary. Like, it only does you good if your heart is turned towards it. And I don't know, because when you're at my age, like, you kind of need to discipline before, like, when ideally when they're young. But when you're at my age, like, discipline comes more through a relational stance. And so, like, just keep relationship and be ready to hear and change. And as hard as it is to hear and to act out, you're not always right. So
yeah, and neither are we as parents, right? Yeah. So what would you want to tell parents about discipline? What message would you want to leave with parents?
Discipline is good, but find the core things that you're trying to achieve from discipline, and discipline from love and with the goal in mind. And pick your battles, focus on the ones that matter most, and lay the foundation, and then you can get to the nuances of things.
That was really, really well said. Yeah. So I just want to leave the same encouragement to parents out there. Like Adoniah said, obviously it's ideal if you can start disciplining younger. Even when they're still 1 or 2, there are things that you can do. You start seeing they're called the terrible twos because their will is engaged and going. And so that is the optimal time. It is a gift of God to you to discipline at that point. Because believe me, they can understand patterns. They can understand this is the boundary. They understand that they're crossing it intentionally, and they understand that you love them. And there's so much peace you can bring to your child and to your home by engaging in discipline, even at that young age, and lay the foundation for future years. But if you missed those years and your kids are teenagers, then I just want to encourage you, stay engaged, keep pursuing the relationships. You still manage transportation, you still manage phone bills, you still manage a lot of those things in your kids' lives, and you still have you are still the gatekeeper of access to friends, to activities, to all those things. And so that would be my encouragement to you, is to use those things as a means of discipline if necessary, but keep the conversations going. Even if your kids are blowing you off, keep coming after them. Like, I love you. I want connection. You matter to me. I'm proud of you. I love being your mom. I love being your dad. Like you keep on giving that honor to them, and you will see it come back to you. And so that would be my encouragement. But whatever you do, don't give up. The discipline is worth it. So bless you guys. Thank you for joining us on Homemade Family today. And I believe Amy will be back next week, and we might have more to talk about discipline, or I'm not entirely sure what we're talking about next week quite yet, but it's going to be good. So come and join us then, 2:00 Central Time, right here, or on any of your favorite podcast channels. That's what I was trying to say. Bless you guys. We'll talk to you later. Bye.